Today's video is sponsored by the Free Eagles app for War Thunder. Download the app in the video description below and use the code shown on screen to get 10 golden eagles right now. Welcome back to War Thunder and welcome aboard the P40, which is the first Italian tank that I want to present you, and the actual name of it is P40 Leoncello. I guess that's what it's called. It's a rank 2 premium tank with a battle rating of 3.3, and this is quite interesting because I could actually make a tank review about this tank. I have some good footage really, and the best battle that I've played so far was this one, but I got a ace nearly every game because this tank is really strange to compare it. Stat wise, it's not the best in any category except one, and that's the HE fella of the APHE shell, but you have a limited penetration. But then you also can switch to a heat shell, but it just has 100 millimeters of penetration. So let's get things into order. We have a 75 millimeter Ansaldo 75 L34 cannon with 63 rounds. You do not even need half of that ammunition, and you even have a smoke grenade launcher, which is very weird because the smoke shells explode on the top of your tank and give you instant cover. And you have a 8mm Breda Mod 38 machine gun. You in fact have two of them, but they have very limited ammunition capacity per magazine. Your turret rotation speed at max is 14 degrees per second. That's not the best. Your reload rate is 5.0 seconds for an ace crew. Gun depression minus 10 degrees, so it's not too bad. But you have just 330 horsepower for a 26-ton tank. And your top speed with 40 is okay, so it's nothing overly spectacular for battle rating 3.3. Now let's talk about the shells. We have three. HE, 9mm of penetration, useless. Then we have the Granata Perforante 75/32 APCBC, aka APHE, and it's a relatively slow muzzle velocity, 624 meters per second of muzzle velocity, but we have 270 grams of TNT filling. That's quite a lot, and the fuse sensitivity is not 28 like with the Germans, but 15 more on the Soviets, so you get those juicy explosions more often than not. 270 grams, that's more like on the, for example, B version of the Soviet 122mm BR471 shells. That's just one-shotting everything. It's absolutely brutal, but you just have 75 millimeters of penetration, and the penetration goes down to 66 millimeters at 500 meters and just 59 at 1000 meters. Also, you know, angled armor, it's always a bit tricky, but when you have a successful penetration, you one-shot everything. For everything that you have problems penetrating, you have a 100mm penetrating heat shell, which has a muzzle velocity of 552 meters per second, which is also very good in terms of using against those potato trucks, AAAs of other nations, lightly armored vehicles, tank destroyers, whatever, you name it, because it initiates hull break in a lot of cases. And overall, I like this tank, and my final verdict is that it's actually worth it, because it also will grant you access to the Italian tanks, I guess, because it's a bundle tank, if I'm not mistaken. That's just what I know. The problem with this tank is it cannot really compete with its armor, although not being terrible. It's more like Panzer IV levels of protection. Panzer IV G level, I guess, it doesn't really quite achieve, but it can get over Panzer IV F2 level. So yeah, a little bit of sloping, 45 millimeters side armor, so it's not too bad, to be honest. The real problem with this tank currently in this patch is that it has no other tank, but you can respawn it 2 times, so 3 spawns in total, even in realistic. Of course, if you have the required spawn points, which is not too difficult to achieve in this tank. but you have no air support. You have no AAA in your lineup. The next tank is the M26, which I will also have a good look at, and maybe we'll do a tank review. But you have basically no real plane support. There is no Italian plane with rockets, the bomb load is limited, and the bombers with bomb loads, well, it's not really that easy to explain, but it's always difficult to bomb something. I made that experience. So other nations have much better options, and your cannon cast, well, good luck to line up a 4-engine heavy bomber with a 102mm gun to do the job. And there you can see the unreliability of the APHE and the Heat FS when it comes to dealing with heavily armed targets. You might think you might one-shot everything, but in fact Churchills are notorious for absorbing stupid amounts of damage or just screwing around with your damage dealing capacities of the shells. It's right on the edge, really. 75mm at 3.3, you suffer heavily when it comes to up tiers. You suffer heavily when you have to deal with a lot of enemies from the front. KV1 can laugh at you when you fire the APHE shell, and against the Heat he has just to do a little bit of angling and he's practically untouchable. T-34 is the same hull-wise, but the turret you have to aim very carefully, and then you have the pure HE power in the filling to blow them up most of the time. You can see what I'm talking about. T-34s also, I mean, that was basically the HE filling of a 122mm Russian shell. Imagine if I would fire that at this tank. But then the shell overall is bigger, and the shrapnels are also more and bigger, I guess, on a 122. So this is, amongst the 75s, it's by far the best, even surpassing the Japanese. But it's the worst in terms of penetration. It's more like a Panzer IV F1-ish penetration, also with the Heat FS. And the battle rating is too high, in my opinion, when you just would balance it around that. The rate of fire is okay, and I do not have the stats of all other nations' tanks in mind currently. God, those airplane sounds. But you kind of see where this tank is going. It's a bit like a Churchill without armor and faster, but not very good gun control stats, so in terms of turret rotation speed and so on. But you have good gun depression, and you have the good synergy between Heat FS and APHE, which is more important for, I guess, American tanks at rank 4 and 5 to really get used to it. But again, if you're used to the German low-tier Panzer IVs with the 75mm, with the APHE and the Heat shell, sorry about this, then you kind of see where this is going. 100mm is around about the same penetration that you have from the secondary gun on the mouse and also the E100, and so you excessively can train it with that. The tank review of the E100 will come up next week. I want to make it really good, so that's the reason why I'm trying to get home to my old PC and get some of the old footage back, because I have some hilarious scenes. I actually wanted never to do a tank review on the E100, but you know, I acquired some other tanks as well that I thought we would never see again, like the T-34 prototype or the German Sherman, and I got them, so it's okay. So back to this, I cut out the part where I spawned in a plane and achieved nothing because I was shot down by a AAA. Not surprising at all, but how much wing area there is to hit for a AAA when you take out this 4-engined, yeah, Italian attacker, I guess. So I spawned in with this tank again. And one thing that I have to say about this tank is that the income is consistently good. If you get like 5 kills, a few capture zones, The best thing that I got was without booster, just with the premium of this tank and the premium account that I have, 75,000 silver lines. For a tier 2 premium, that's quite a lot, I guess. And I got it, you know, very often, or on a very regular basis so far. So that's very good, that's very nice. Of course, it's a premium tank and it will just get you so far. At rank 2, it's more like getting access to the closed beta or the upcoming closed beta of Italian tanks, I guess. I'm not quite sure about this. And yeah, I got this tank from Gaijin, and I wanted to make a video about it to just check out what the Italian tanks will be like, or at least what this tank will be like. Is this tank a bad tank? Certainly not. Is it an outstandingly good tank that can hold itself in every situation? No, not at all. But it is a tank that is not just a walkover, it's a tank with a good set of things that you can use, and ultimately if you have situational awareness and a bit of luck, you can deal even with the T-34 from the front. And there you can see the heat straight through the front. And yeah, that was my 8th kill for 1 death. I think that is actually saying everything that there is to be, that has there to be said about this tank. It's a quite nice little tank. I actually like it, but I say it right out now, it is not a seal clubber. It has things that are not so great, and you should keep that in mind. But there could be worse purchases, I guess. So, and with this second spawn zone that I acquired and the 8 kills, the game is about to end. So let's have a quick look at the post-battle results, shall we? If the match would have taken like 10 seconds longer, I would have gotten my 9th kill. I can assure you that. So, for all the things that I just said, like the 8 kills, 2 capture zones and so on, I got 70,000 silver lines and 6,268 research points. Not bad for a tier 2 premium that I can recommend if you want to have something exotic and something that you can relax at lower tiers to make also some credits if needed. So yeah, the P40 Leoncello is quite a nice tank, and that's it for me today. So thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Please give this video a like with it, subscribe if you want to see more, and we'll see each other on the battlefields of War Thunder.